It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue. Get over to Joe's Karting today. Do yourself right with a little indoor kart racing. The action for today in NASCAR is at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We'll get you more information on that coming up. If you want to find out what it's like to do a little road course racing, you can get over to Joe's Karting today and do yourself right with some indoor kart racing. Yesterday was an absolutely beautiful day. Today, a little bit better day to be inside as it is chilly on this beautiful, it's a Sunday in the Midwest. I guess any day is beautiful when you put it in perspective of what's happened in the racing world last couple of weeks, last week or so actually. Today's show, we're obviously going to cover the Newman incident at the end of the Daytona 500. We'll talk about the Daytona 500. We'll also talk about some news and notes. Bill Leighton Jr. is going to join us in turn number 2, and then in turn number 4, we'll get you set for Las Vegas. The race today, coverage is on Fox, but first and foremost, we want to send our thoughts and prayers out to the Snyder family. That Kendall, who underwent brain surgery, had a mass the size of a large blueberry removed from her brain. Latest update, Thursday afternoon, was that she was awake, she was alert, she knows who she is, she knows what month it is, and that's awesome considering what she just had done. So thoughts and prayers with them as Kendall begins her recovery. That is the wife of Stu Snyder, who's a regular on the show.
And hopefully, once she realizes that she's married to Stu, that doesn't fall apart.
That blueberry might have been holding her on, huh?
No, Stu, we're rooting for you guys.
We can joke because she's just fine. But, so best of luck to her. And, Dirk, you've got a charity that's coming up next Saturday, the 29th of February.
Yes, the wonderful last day of the month. The Sports for Kid Foundation, an Omaha group that has an annual fundraiser. They've got over 200 items listed on their website that are going to be auctioned off. There are some NASCAR items. There's an autographed shirt from the M&M's band, Kyle Busch. There's an autographed shirt from Junior. There are a couple autographed cars, Terry Labonte and Mark Martin. Those were just a few of the things I ran across. It's down at the Ralston Arena there at 73rd and Q, Saturday night, the 29th. Doors open at 5:30. Admission's $10. Or $20 if you want their All-American buffet ticket. Kids 12 and under admitted free, but the buffet would be extra. But the admission on to look at the objects for auction would be free. But 200-plus items currently, and I'm sure they'll be getting a few more here in the next week. But it's a great cause. Again, it's a local thing, and I'm looking at another thing right here. They've got an autographed Sandy Koufax Dodgers jersey.
Ooh, I even know that name.
So, I mean, they get some good stuff every year. So, if you get a chance, stop by. I do not know, and you could probably go over to their website. I'm trying to find their web address here at www.sportsforkidsfoundation.com. They may do part of their auction online. I'm not sure.
Okay. And when is that date again?
The 29th of February.
Okay.
5:30 is when everything kicks off, and like I said, you can go down and spend an extra. You spend $10 to get in, but you can spend an extra $20 and have your dinner, and have a full belly while you're looking around. And I'm pretty sure they run with a cocktail hour too. So
good deal. That's coming up this Saturday. Dirk, let's get right into it. First and foremost, we'll talk about the Daytona 500. Obviously the race got kicked off on Sunday with it
rain.
Seemed to get delayed just a little bit, and we couldn't really figure out why because it looked on the TV screens at Quaker Steak and Lube like it was an absolutely beautiful day down in Daytona.
Well, I thought,
and I would bet for about 90% of the track it was a beautiful day.
Well, but like I told you, I had read where they were doing so many things for precautions with the president being there. Teams couldn't have any fuel cans out on pit road till after he left. They couldn't take their nitrogen tanks out there. And I figured they're going to do a bunch of extra pace laps and let the pits get all set up.
Yeah, you don't even begin to realize how much of an operation it is for the President of the United States to show up at a sporting event like that.
And buzz the tower.
And you don't think about these little things, but the Secret Service had to have planned out every little part of it, where he was going to stand, how long he was going to be there, and everything that the teams had. And you're absolutely right. To have a can of fuel, I mean, it sounds crazy, but they have to plan for the craziest scenario, and that could even go as far as saying, you guys can't have your nitrous tanks on pit lane.
No, anything explosive was not allowed.
Maybe even not just an attack on him, but just an accident. I mean, if one of those things exploded, if one of the cans of fuel caught on fire, who knows what could have happened. And so they got to take every precaution. And so I think you're absolutely right. There was a combination there where they probably took a couple extra laps to get the president out, to get everything situated and ready for lap number 1 of the Daytona 500, because we've seen it before. They could easily go into turn 1 and wad themselves up. And now guys got to come down pit road, and the pit crews aren't ready to do it. So they got to wait for that to happen. And there was probably a little bit of then the rains came. I think it was over in turn 3, I heard, or turn 4, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 3 and 4. I think it was on the northeast end of the track, kind of the way the track sits. But yeah, they said the caution was for the rain, not for any of the other stuff. And then obviously, they got the track cleared off. So you had the first rain delay, then got 21 laps in, I think
20. I thought they had just completed 19. They came around, completed lap 20, and then they pulled them into the pits. And maybe they pulled them into the pits, and that was them completing lap 20, and they threw out the red flag. But they did end up starting on lap 21 for Monday, which turned out to be a beautiful day. But I was talking with Pat Eccles on he was down there in the suites at Daytona watching the whole thing, and he said to his in his life he has never seen a wall of rain like that. And apparently this happens in Florida. I've never been there. I've never flown over it. I've never seen it. But apparently these storms will just come out of nowhere, and they are torrential downpours.
Oh, it'll rain hard there, and I was personally down there for a test session. I want to say it was January of 2003, and we got there on Thursday, and it was raining when we got there, and it rained solid. I mean, nonstop, 24 hours a day until about noon on Sunday. And we were there for tests. We did some teching on trucks and stuff for a couple hours each day, but that was all we could do. Then on Sunday, they actually got the track dried, and they got about an hour's worth of practice on the track. But that was normally a 3-day test where you'd get about 10 hours on the track, and it ended up being about an hour. But it was 36 to 38 degrees and wet for 3 solid days. It was lovely.
That sounds awesome. Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, you saw about 40 sick officials getting on planes when we were leaving on Sunday.
Dirk, you're going to love this. So we're talking Daytona 500, and you're about to watch Dirk's head shoot above the 590 on the banners behind us. But one of the suggestions, and I'm only picking on him because I know him and I love him and he's a great guy, but James says, let's get rid of the restrictor plates and see who can really wheel those cars at Daytona.
Restrictor plates.
Do they have restrictor plates anymore, Dirk?
That's a term I did not hear this year.
Yeah.
There are no restrictor plates on these cars anymore.
James, I hate to break it to you, but NASCAR got rid of the restrictor plates after last year, and they just have smaller engines now.
Well, no. The engines are the same size. They run a tapered spacer, which gives them it's a little over 100 more horsepower, but then they put a 6-foot-tall spoiler on the back of the car to take away the horsepower gain, so they still go in the same speed. But the spacer is what they've been experimenting with for several years now. I'm going to say 6-8 years on the Xfinity cars, and they finally pretty much dialed it in to where it has a ton more throttle response. That was the big thing with the spacer plate. It killed your airflow going between the carburetor and the intake so bad that you had no throttle response. There wasn't any. But now they've got that back. So yeah, no more restrictor plates, buddy. But they still are. They're never going to let these cars run consistently and by themselves at over 200 miles an hour. That's why you see the 10+ mile an hour difference between qualifying and running in the draft.
And they added those restrictor plates because I believe the fastest man in history is Bill Elliott at about 2:12, 2:13. Well, the fastest man in NASCAR history. A fastest lap ever laid down at a NASCAR track clocked in right around 212 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think you're a little bit shy there. I think it was, I think in the draft there was like a 227.
Okay, I'm talking overall lap speed at the track.
That's what I'm talking about. But the cars in a draft right now are still going over 200 miles an hour. But I think a qualifying lap was like 212. You're real close.
And that was when NASCAR said, okay, we got to start slowing these cars down because somebody is going to hurt themselves.
Well, it was when they started going airborne which happened to be at the same time.
Yeah.
When they'd downsize the cars and shorten the wheelbase a little bit, and the guys were chopping the tops, and it was kind of pre-templates and everything, and things got really crazy for one season.
We'll talk more about the accident, our thoughts on it, coming up in turn number 3, but for now, let's talk about Chad Cook, who is a local sprint car driver, says, Christopher Bell, that kid from Norman, Oklahoma, impressed the heck out of me. Just proved that sprint car drivers are some of the best drivers out there. I was impressed with the way Christopher Bell ran, too. That takes a lot of cojones to be able to run that race. I don't think he ever ran the Daytona 500 before.
No, I think it was his first 500. He'd run the Xfinity car down there. Right. I don't think he'd run a Cup car yet.
Right. Good race on Monday. I was actually happy to the amount of people that came out to Quaker Steak and Lube on Monday to kind of support them because, man, I was just heartbroken for those guys because Quaker Steak obviously supports the front stretch so well, and they do so much stuff for us, and we get to be friends with Chris, the owner, and all the wait staff because we go down there so much. But I was so excited for them on that Sunday because, man, we had that place packed.
We had it packed. We actually had overflow. We had people coming up and saying, hey, when trivia comes, come get us because we got to sit on the other side because all the seats are full. But I went and gave Chris a Promoter of the Year award.
Yeah.
I mean, he got it to rain in Florida, sell beer in Iowa. How good is that?
And I thought we were going to have a big day for him. The race fans were going to turn out. And by the way, the amount of people that came out on Sunday is the exact reason why we get to go out there during the week and record our show and do the Daytona party, do the championship party, which is now going to be the Phoenix viewing party. But because of the amount of people that turned out there Sunday, thank you so much for you guys' support. I wish we could have been there the whole race and watched the finale, the end of that race on Sunday, but it ended up happening on Monday, and I was impressed with the race. I think that there was some nice action. I was really kind of surprised at the beginning of that third stage, the amount of action that was going on. Those guys were really mixing it up for the first, 15, 20 laps of that third stage, and then I think they kind of calmed themselves down a little bit.
Well, they were trying to get where they thought they needed to be and to get with their teammates, everybody to get lined up. And that's kind of what happened at the end. It just so happened that the two Fords that got lined up weren't teammates, but, it's what actually caused the accident. I mean, Hamlin could have been hung out to dry, and Newman could have won, and Blaney could have run second.
And that'd have been that.
And that'd have been that, exactly. But Blaney was doing what he gets paid to do, just as all the other Penske drivers said. We're paid to win races, not
Absolutely.
to run second.
Chase Elliott wins stage 1. Denny Hamlin wins stage number 2, and we all know that Denny Hamlin ends up going on and winning the race. Ryan Blaney in second. Christopher Bell finishes third. Chris Buescher in third. David Reagan in fourth. And Kevin Harvick with a top 5 finish. Clint Bowyer in sixth. Our boy, Brendan Gaughan. Good 7th place finish. Corey LaJoie in 8th. Ryan Newman in 9th, and Kyle Larson top 10.
And Brendan drove under Newman after LaJoie had hit him. So that was kind of spooky looking, too.
Absolutely. Other guys, Chase Elliott, who had won stage 1, finished 17th. Typically we would go through the lineup and talk about some of the drivers that didn't finish so great, but this is Daytona. The drivers that didn't finish so great that should have: Brad Keselowski, 36th, Jimmy Johnson, 35th, Kyle Busch, 34th, Kurt Busch, 33rd, Martin Truex Jr., 32nd.
Stenhouse was back there somewhere, the pole sitter.
Yeah, he kind of made a couple of people mad again. I mean, it didn't really seem like the drivers were that upset with him, but fans were definitely pretty upset with him the way he was pushing. Listen, Ricky's got to get back to the front. He backed out for a while there after leading for quite a bit. He led 2 different times for 24 laps, but he backed off because the fuel economy is pretty bad for the leader. They end up burning more fuel, so he had to back off and fall back to 3rd or 4th. And then when it was go time, it's go time. It's unsafe to push these guys, but there's no other option. You get them going into it. You get your momentum going, and then you pull out and try to slingshot around them. I mean, there's an argument to be made on both sides of that.
And I still love our wonderful guys on NBC rather than these Fox guys because, again, these guys don't listen to anything. Let's listen to Kyle Busch's radio. Guys, I think the car's blowing up. Hey, there's smoke out of Kyle Busch. Looks like he's got a tire rub.
I know. I was posting about that, and I'm like, wait, I just heard him say, Kyle literally came across the radio and said, we're blowing up. And then they come back and say, well, he must have a tire rub. And then about 2 laps later, they're like, oh, wait a minute, that's coming out of the tailpipe. That might be an engine issue.
Those guys just amaze me. Just amaze me. How do they keep their jobs?
I give them a little bit of credit because it's
company we do.
It's not easy. It's not easy doing that, and you get caught up in the moment, and you don't. You got somebody telling you in your ear one thing, you're hearing another. It's not an easy job, but they certainly have their fair share of screw-ups. But yeah, it's I give them credit for the way the end of that race happened, the way they handled the situation, which let's take a break. We'll come back in turn number 3. Coming up next is going to be Bill Leighton Jr., who we sat down with a couple of weeks ago at Quaker Steak and Lube. We're going to talk to him about his run in the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series in 2019, his plans for running which side of the series in 2020, and his thoughts on 2020 and all that kind of fun stuff with Bill Leighton Jr. in the 24. So we're going to come right back on the front stretch. And then turn number 3, we're going to talk about the Ryan Newman situation, the miracle that ended up coming from that. And then at turn number 4, we're going to get you set for today's race at Las Vegas. We're going to be back on the front stretch.
Powder coating your chassis seems like a luxury until you spill nearly anything on it and watch as the paint drips away. That's when you'll wonder why you didn't take advantage of Red Oak Fabrication's high-quality, durable, and beautiful powder coating for just $275 on a bare chassis. From simple base colors to glitter-lined neon colors, a powder-coated chassis from Red Oak Fabrication will give you a much more durable surface that your sponsors will love seeing in Victory Lane. Email Jordan F. at redoakfabrication.com to book your time.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
It's rolling into yet another Red Oak Fabrication interview. Don't forget, if you need to get your chassis powder coated at an affordable price, just down the road in Highway 34 and 48 in Red Oak, Iowa is Red Oak Fabrication. Affordable powder coating, just $275 for a bare chassis. RedOakFabrication.com for more information. Get a free estimate today, RedOakFabrication.com. Or email Jordan F at RedOakFabrication.com. Joining us.
Stop down the Carhartt store with this wonderful warm weather we got going too.
Yeah, no kidding. Joining us on the show now, the driver of the number 24 Super Late Model throughout the Midwest, and in the finished third in the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series for 2019. Bill Leighton Jr. joining us. Good to have you back on the show, Bill.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going really well. Thanks for coming on. It's been quite a while since I've had you on, I think.
Quite a while. I don't remember the last time, honestly.
Been at least 5 years. That's how long I've been on.
Has it really?
I've never been on with him. No.
I think you came on the show in the studio one time, right?
Yep.
It wasn't over the phone. You stopped in at the studio.
That must have been back in the Buddy days or something.
It was. It was that long ago.
Quite a while ago. Well, it's been a long time coming, and I wanted to talk about your 2019 season. On the show with us to help recap that 2019 season is the voice of the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series, Anthony Ainsley. Anthony, thanks for coming on the show, bud.
Hey, Dan. It's good to see you. Good to see you too, Dirk, as well. Bill Leighton Jr., of course. We spent a lot of time during the summer, but of course, stuff like this, it always helps the off season go by a little quicker. And I know a lot of guys probably want to buy some more time with how big the season is this year, and not only one but two super late model tours for 2020. I know a lot of guys are going to be looking for all that spare time to get those cars ready for the next events.
Absolutely, Bill. You had a heck of a year in 2019, finished third in the Malvern Bank Series, but you were able to win the Nebraska State Championship for the super late models.
Yep.
Did you ever get an explanation on how you won that?
Yeah, it was a little confusing, actually. The track does their points a little different than NASCAR does, so I actually got bonus points for starting further back than 5th or 6th, and that gave me the one extra point to win the championship, I guess.
It seems like they changed that point deal every other year or something. About the time you figure it out, it changes.
Yeah,
again.
I think they're just trying to help guys out for like some of us guys who start with an invert system, so we can gain a few more points against the national guys that kind of do a qualifying deal and start on the front row every time.
Yeah, that's been a complaint since they started the whole deal, 30 years ago, because all the guys in the asphalt late models back Virginia and whatnot,
Yep.
they all start on the pole. And back here, if you were the fast guy, you were starting 12th.
Yep. And that's still the way it is, but they've kind of, like I said, fixed it a little bit with that point system. So I don't think anybody from around here will ever run for a national championship again, just because we don't have the right amount of races or enough cars to compete. But I do think the point system's better than it used to be, yeah.
You were in a pretty tight points battle for the track championship at I-80 Speedway. I believe the final night came down to just maybe 5 to 8 points between you, Josh Leonard, and Andrew.
Yeah, Josh ended up winning by 1. I wish we had that night back. We just didn't have things quite right, and we were kind of blew a motor up the night before, and everything just wasn't really going our way. And we kind of just put the other car together to get it out there, and probably didn't have the right things going on with it. So a few weeks later, we came out with the same car and ended up winning the feature. So I wish I had that one back.
Had that night back. Do you think that the blown engine the night before was really what threw a kind of, not to use a pun, but a wrench in the whole cog?
Well, I mean, that was the car that I'd been running for most of the year, and so I kind of had to get that one out, the other one out, and go with it. But I mean, they're the same car. They got a little bit different motor. I just didn't have quite the right package on that night, and we came one spot short.
Still a good season, though. I mean, finishing second at I-80 Speedway, any track you go to, they talk about how tough the competition is, but I think the toughest competition at any track throughout the area is going to be the super late model division at I-80 Speedway.
There's a lot of guys that have stepped their game up big time here in the last 4 to 5 years, and it's got a lot to do with racing more with the Malvern Bank Series, and everybody's got to get a little better, because to run out there, I mean, you got to be on your game to run out there. There's 10 guys that are going to come up every night and come bring their A game, so you got to go out there and try to do your best during the week on the weekly nights, because that's just preparing you more for the tour there.
Yeah, the weekly series is almost up to what Sunset Speedway used to be for late models.
Yeah,
that was a competitive field.
Yep. It's getting there. And, a couple years ago, you probably wouldn't have said that. We were down on cars, and the competition wasn't all that great, But now, it's very competitive. Was there maybe one guy that won 1 or 2 more races all year at the weekly Rebel? That was about it?
Either Josh Leonard or Tad Pospisil, I think, was like the only driver to win multiple features. I think it was Leonard who
I think
the only driver, and it took about maybe 6 or 7 weeks before I think this year, and the same could be said about last year. It took about almost halfway through the season before someone won for a second time out there. So these last couple of seasons with the super late models at I-80 Speedway definitely been probably the most competitive, maybe the most competitive that the division has ever been at I-80 Speedway, with the points title coming down to the last night. The top 3 are separated by only about 5 or 8 points the last 2 seasons now.
Yep.
It's been insane to see who can step up, and sometimes you just need a little bit of luck to go your way.
Yeah, definitely.
Talking about the I-80 points, we talked about Ben Schaller, who's going to be on the show, Corey Zeitner, Tad. Tad didn't come race at I-80 much this year, but just a very tough field. And then you guys get to turn around off of a weekly basis and go and race kind of the same guys on a touring basis, which is, do you think the touring basis helps you because you're able to maybe try new things at different tracks and maybe apply that at I-80 Speedway?
No, I think it works just the opposite. Because what works at I-80. I mean, we've all raced there plenty, so we get something that is in our mind, and you can go out there and try it and say, well, if this works, it works. If it doesn't, I know where to go back to. So then you can go to a different track and go out there and you say, well, my norm is a little different, so I tried this here, and this is what it felt like. So if I need that there, then I can flip-flop back and forth. So I think it actually helps to run I-80 and then go to all them other tracks and have a better idea what you need out there.
Well, and if you're running for points at I-80 on the weekly basis too, you lose a little bit of time, especially if you get a couple mix-ups on the track and have to replace a right front spindle and a couple A-frames and stuff. Takes away from setup time when you're coming back.
Definitely. Yep.
Between the Malvern Bank Series and the weekly classes, there are many weekends on the tour where we'll compete on Friday night over at I-80 Speedway, and then we hit up a racetrack like a tight little bull ring, like completely different from I-80 Speedway, and transitioning between those 2 tracks in less than 24 hours. What is that process like for a team of your caliber?
You don't really change the car that much. You pretty much go there with your baseline, and you do change your driving style a little bit. Like when I go to a track I like is off-road, and that's a lot smaller, a lot tighter than I-80. It's really not the car that's all that different. It's more your driving style and how you drive it. But there are a few more things you do to make, say, go a little further well, if I need to tighten it up, well, I need to tighten it up a little further here. I need to tighten it up a little further there, depending on the track condition and the size of the track, yeah.
And obviously that goes along with the gear change.
Exactly.
I was going to say, you mentioned Off-Road Speedway, Bill, guys. We've ran 6 Malvern Bank races at Off-Road Speedway as of the end of 2019 season. You're looking at the man who has won 3 of those 6 events, and they were back to back to back. And two of those races were in the same season. He swept him, and we're looking at the 2020 schedule for the West Series. For the Malvern Bank Series. Again, we hit up off-road twice in 2019. How does that feel for your team and possibly help you out in the points deal as well?
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Last year there I was just off. And you're not going to go there every time with the same thing and hit it every time. And we were lucky enough to go there with a pretty baseline 3 times in a row and come out on top. And something just changed a little bit. We were just a little off, but we found what we needed to find later in the year. So if we would have went back there, I think we would have had a better shot at it. But we were still competitive. I think we still ran top 4 or 5 there when we were there. So it's not like we're super far off, just need a little bit. And there's a lot of other tracks I'd like to go win at, some of these other ones. I still haven't won a Malvern Bank race at Corning, and that kind of bothers me a little bit because I've won a lot of races there, just never one of those. So that's one of my main goals is to get that done this year.
There have been multiple times. The 24 has probably been one of the biggest threats to dethrone that number 14 of Kyle Burke. It's come multiple times, and we saw Tad Pospisil do it in 2017. Do you feel like 2020, out of all the years that you've been competitive and possibly given Burke the best run for the money, do you feel like 2020 could be maybe your best bet to finally climb that final spot and claim the championship?
I think this year's going to be really, really close. Yep. I think I thought 18 when I started out 18. I thought I was going to be there, and then we kind of had a slow start, but then finished strong. So I was like, okay, 19 is going to be the year, and we started strong in 19, and we started out good. And I think I had a pretty decent lead there for a while, and then just everything just started going bad. I broke a shock first lap of the race and fell out, then a motor broke, and a couple other things just went wrong, and that stuff just happens, and you just got to live with it and move on and try to prepare a little better and double check some other things that you thought you didn't need to. And so this year, we're coming back with the same cars, same motors, another motor ready to go. So this year will be a strong year for us.
It's going to be an exciting year to watch this because I think everyone saw it at the awards banquet that was there that Andrew Koziski threw down the gauntlet and said there's plenty of guys in the field that are ready for Kyle Burke to not stand up at the banquet and give the same speech over again.
How do you feel about that challenge that Andrew's thrown down to the rest of the field?
I mean, he's right. I mean, there's no reason one of us can't beat him. I mean, he's done it a long time. I mean, like somebody said the other day, he's raced for 38 years or whatever. Well, there was only 2 guys there that were over 38 years old. I remember when I was sitting in the stands at Sunset, I watched Kyle Burke go around the racetrack. So coming up and growing up, racing against him was a little intimidating back then for a while. And now he's just another guy. He's just out there doing the same thing we're doing. I mean, he's working hard, he's driving, he's doing all the same stuff everybody else is. So there's no reason one of us can't beat him.
Yep, and of course, proven a feature winner, of course, Bill Leighton Jr., 15 career Malvern Bank Series wins, currently sits 3rd on the all-time win list with the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series. So depending on how how the season unfolds and how the changes in the schedule are when going between racetracks, there are a couple of new tracks on the West Series Tour, and depending on how much you're going to possibly race on the East Series and how much you're going to give those guys a challenge. I mean, there are plenty of good opportunities to learn a few things, and of course, there are a few other tracks out there that the 24 has been strong on. Of course, Adams County being one of them. Haven't pulled off a Malvern Bank win at Corning, but won many weekly late model races out there. Won a track championship out at Corning a few years back. So, and with I think 2 or 3 stops there in 2020. This could be maybe schedule-wise, this could be falling in the 24's favor.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I think we have a pretty good shot of getting some stuff done major this year. I think we're a little bit more ready than we've ever been already. Sometimes we get a slow start after the season's over, but we got one car that's just about done, waiting on a motor to come back fresh. The other car's got a fresh motor in it. It just needs to get a new body on it, and it'll be ready to go. So I think we're a little more prepared than we've been for a while, and I think good things have come for us this year.
So I think this is probably the most excitable we'll ever see. I mean, this is like throwing down the gauntlet kind of a challenge. I think we're going to be good this year.
Yeah. It's kind of been that way for the last few years.
I've seen him excited when they hand him a pretty big check.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are the exciting times, yep.
So the plan this year then is basically status quo, going to chase Malvern Bank and run the weekly series?
Yeah, we'll run I-80 weekly. We'll run all the West races.
All the Malvern Bank races?
All the Malvern Bank West races, yes. And then we'll try to do some of the East races. I mean, with time and going places back and forth, and with Lisa's what she has to do, and with my boys what they have to do. So we kind of got to pick and choose some of those East races. Maybe some of the ones that go 2 or 3 days, we'll go there for those, just because we can travel over there and stay.
Thankfully, there are a few of those races that overlap. You know, the trips to Marshalltown, Stewart, and of course, the Yankee Dirt Track Classic we have in September. So
we'll go to all those.
Thankfully, there's a bit of a mercy rule there for the late models, so let the guys get a chance to compete against each other. And of course, you got the Wednesday of the Silver Dollar Nationals weekend. You know, that's a meeting of the two tours.
Yep. And hopefully we can repeat our performance at Silver Dollar from last year and have another good showing. So
maybe a little better Saturday night, maybe.
Yeah, that was a driver error in a pretty big way there. I just screwed up, plain and simple. And it happens, and I know it happened, and I was just trying to go hard, and it was too early to go that hard. So
it's a fine line right there.
Yep. If I would have been able to see Bobby Pierce, I could have seen if I just drove it on the wall.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hit it nearly as hard as what I did.
That's what Richard Petty used to say, run the high line, because when you hit the wall, you didn't go as far.
I'm starting to get convinced that a lot of the red paint on the wall at I-80 Speedway, that came off of Bobby's car. That paint wasn't there before.
I think he made I-80 a little bit wider that night.
He might have, especially into turn 3. I guarantee you that.
Yep. I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned Lisa, your wife, that does a phenomenal job with the racetrack, and I'm not just saying that because she's my boss and I like to embarrass her every once in a while. But look, she says I'm number one.
She
That's
keeps
great.
She keeps I-80 and the Malvern Bank Series together.
I mean,
seriously.
it's you watch a lot of relationships in life, and marriages are tough enough.
Yeah.
But I think you guys have one of the rare ones that you can actually call a unique relationship where there's going to be natural friction between the race director and a driver.
Yeah,
I've seen that friction from time to time, and I think you guys handle it very well.
Yeah, it's grown with time. I mean, back when we first got married and everything, I was young and she was young, and I was fiery and ready to go. And over time, you just realize that it's not really that important. I mean, it's important, but we try to keep, we'll say stuff at the racetrack, and then when we try to go home or get home, it just goes away.
Right.
I mean, we got other things to worry about at home rather than that, and we'll keep that there and home stuff.
You guys do a good job with keeping the baggage at the racetrack. Not carrying it into the house.
Yep.
What happens at the track stays at the track.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's sometimes it carries over, and we have a little conversation, and then I just give up, and then we just move on.
So
Sometimes
on a
things
scale
happen,
of, can you count on your hands how many times you've won? Because I can count on them hands how many times I've won.
I don't think I can.
I've got them on
I don't even
stats
think I
right
can start counting yet. Honestly.
I say I've got the numbers right here. Thank you very much, Dre Hample.
But I think you guys and she does a phenomenal job. You do a great. It's an awesome job what they're doing with the Malvern Bank Series, and you guys drivers following along too. So congratulations on a great year. 4th place, 3rd place. We got to get you up to 2nd and eventually claim that championship in 2020.
I was telling somebody the other day, I don't think I finished out of the top 5, but I've never finished 1st, 2nd. I've just been 3rd and 4th, over and over, just back and forth.
You want to give a quick thank you to anybody that helps you get up and down the road?
Of course, yeah. I got to thank all my guys that help me at the shop. My dad, of course, he puts in just as many hours as anybody.
That's pretty good for an old man.
He does. But like you said, he's starting to get a little older, so I got to learn to keep, maybe not put so much weight on him. And,
Responsibility.
Yep. And I got to thank my Uncle Bud, my crew guy Red, Daniel. But Daniel's off at school now.
He made the honor roll.
Did he?
Yes,
Good,
he did.
good.
Saw him over Christmas.
Well, that's good. Of course, my coroner, Mark Wright, we couldn't do any of this without him. You know, he helps out and supplies us with everything we need. I got great sponsors that have been with me a long time. We're trying to get most of them back. We already got a guy he's been with us for 5-6 years.
Wow.
He's back on. Brad Taylor with Taylor Quick Pick, Adam Duras with Duras Dent Works, JIT Flooring, Osceola Implement, Pioneer. We're trying to get a couple other guys back, and hopefully we'll have another great year.
What is the easiest way to get a hold of you? Do you handle the sponsorship? Is that something?
Yeah, I do a lot of that stuff myself. Me and my uncle, Wayne or Bud, whatever you want to call him. He does some of it too. But yeah, the easy way to get a hold of me, send me a text. Phone number's 402-505-0166. You can find it anywhere. It's on the Facebook page. It's on everywhere. You message the page if you have any questions or anything, or want to have an opportunity to be with us or anything like that.
Bill Leighton Jr., driving the number 24, finished third in 2019, looking to win the championship in 2020. Best of luck to you and stay safe, bud.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back on the front stretch.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole of the front stretch and the home of MAV TV, featuring action from the Lucas Oil Late Model Series.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Located on Mid-America Drive in Council Bluffs.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to it. Rolling into turn number 3 on the front stretch, and it's time to have a little conversation about some of the aftermath that happened at Daytona. We all know that it was probably one of the scarier situations since 2001. I can think of a handful of them. Probably Brad Keselowski at Talladega when him and Carl Edwards got together was pretty scary. Kyle Larson was pretty scary in the Xfinity Series when his engine ended up in the grandstand.
Austin Dillon's at Daytona.
Yeah, it's almost said it.
Almost said it.
It's not restrictor plates. It's super speedway racing. It's just fans want this high speed. It's the reason why the Daytona 500 is so popular, because it's high speeds, it's edge of your seat, and it's probably the most prestigious race in our circuit because it is so hard to win. You can literally be Ryan Newman coming out of turn 4, leading that race, and end up 9th on your hood in the hospital.
Well, you got a guy like Denny Hamlin who's won it 3 times but doesn't have a championship. And you got Kyle Busch with 2 championships that's had 15 tries, I think, or 16 tries at the 500 without a win. Look at how long it took Earnhardt to win it. 1 win, 7 titles. Well,
they always talk about, in football, if you are the Ohio State coach, you could lose every game except for that game against Michigan. You win that game, you keep your job. You win every game and lose Michigan, you might lose your job. It's that important of a game for everybody. Absolutely, it is absolutely. So let's talk about that. Coming out of turn 4, that was an exciting final lap. I mean, watching Denny Hamlin, you go back and watch it again, and you can't help but give Denny credit because I think he set those guys up perfect. He knew that the worst spot to be is leading that race out of turn 4, and I think he kind of backed off. Whether he did it on purpose or not, he played it perfectly to where those guys shot ahead, and he used, was it the 95 that gave him a shot to get him the momentum going again?
There was really nobody behind him. There wasn't, 95 wasn't right up there with him, or he would have finished a lot higher.
Not 95. It was Buescher, Chris Buescher, the 17.
Yeah, but Buescher couldn't push anybody, and that's why he was in such bad shape, or he'd have gone with his Ford guys. He was just trying to stick in somebody's draft to stay up and not lose any spots. He had that damage on the left front of his car because he started that one restart on the front row and got passed before they got to turn 1. He didn't have a car that could do anything. It was hurt. Hamlin had no help.
you're absolutely right. Now that I try to go back and think about it off the top of my head, had Newman not wrecked, it would have been Newman obviously winning that race, and Blaney finishing second, and Hamlin finishing third. Talk about the Blaney exchange there. I saw nothing wrong with what Ryan Blaney did.
Absolutely nothing. Newman was doing everything he gets paid to do. Try and stay in front with 300 feet to go. Blaney did everything he was paid to do, get to the front with 300 feet to go. The whole thing would have played out just a little bit differently if they'd have waited a little longer on the back straightaway to make their move.
Yeah.
Because when they went by Hamlin, Nothing Hamlin could do. He was just along for a ride. Then he dove in behind Blaney and was trying to push Blaney, and hopefully Blaney would make a move, and he could, then fight it out with Blaney at the end. But, everybody made their move. Everybody broke away and tried to go hammer down right at the end. And, Ryan had some damage on his car, so he was not the fastest car there. Matter of fact, I think Hamlin was the only one without damage. I think Blaney had a little damage too.
Did he?
But he could have, Blaney could have backed off, but you don't do that.
Yeah.
Man, you're a racer.
When people talk about the blocking and how drivers get bent out of shape about blocking, Joey Logano blocked during the Clash race and caused this big wreck. That wasn't the final lap that he did the blocking. Right. That's the key to it being acceptable in the garage afterwards or not. If it's the final lap, you block for all you're worth. That's the reason why Ryan Newman is known as the hardest guy to pass. I mean, granted, he does that kind of blocking every single lap.
Well, but he does it when they're trying to put him a lap down. And that's another kind of line there where, you fight to stay on the lead lap. And they say, that he's got one of the widest cars around when you're trying to pass him and put him a lap down. Now, just trying to pass him is another story. Mm-hmm. He's as smart as everybody else. If you're 3 or 4 mile an hour faster than him and his crew chief and spotter are telling them that, he's going to let you by. Mm-hmm. He's not going to take a chance of wrecking you both in the middle of a race.
If he's got a car he think can hold the spot, hold on the lead lap, he's going to give you everything he's got. I got no problem with what Blaney did. I think he is in no way at fault for what happened to Ryan Newman, and I do feel bad for him that he's going to have that guilt with him. Thankfully, Ryan walked away, which seems to be pretty unscathed. I mean, he's going to be out for, we don't even know how long at this point, but thankfully Ryan's okay, and Blaney doesn't have to deal with what... was it Sterling Marlin that turned senior?
Yeah.
Because that's something that, even though you're a racer and you know how these things happen at Daytona, you can't help but lay awake at night and think, I was the one that turned him into the wall and he ended up dying. So if something tragic like that would have happened to Newman, I think that it would have haunted Blaney for a very long time. But I don't think he did anything wrong there is what I'm getting at.
He didn't do anything wrong, and I think, I think he'll get over it just fine, He might have had a sleepless night or two, but I did see a post. Him and Bubba Wallace are good friends, and Bubba said he was handling it real well. The look on Corey LaJoie's face when he heard, after he came out of the infield care center, that Ryan Newman had gone to the hospital, he was just amazed, and all these people are putting out that picture with him collapsing after he gets out of his car and saying, such a powerful message. He's praying for Ryan Newman after he crashed. He had no idea who he hit, and he said that. I saw smoke. I knew I hit somebody. I didn't know who it was.
You just said, the first he found out that Ryan Newman was going to the hospital was when Bob Pockris asked him about it as he came out of the infield care center.
20, 30 minutes after the accident.
Right.
And he didn't even know who he hit.
Right.
And
I think he even said that in the interview. He goes, I don't know who'd I hit. Who'd I hit?
And he asked Bob. He said, Bob, who'd I hit? And Bob said, you hit Ryan Newman, and he's on his way to the hospital. And Corey's face just turned white.
Yeah.
It shocked him. And he came on and said, people, he goes, I might have said a thank you to Jesus for getting me out of my car. Yeah. But he goes, I collapsed. I couldn't breathe. And you don't understand. Well, I'm sure there's been people who have been in a wreck at 55 miles an hour. If you've got your seatbelt on, usually that's going to knock the wind out of you. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's wrecked in their race car at 60 or 70, 80 miles an hour on the local dirt tracks knows it knocks the wind out of you. You see them get out of their car and they sit down next to it because they can't stand up.
How much do you think Newman slowed down from when he came in and hit that outside wall and started spinning, and then LaJoie came and hit him? Do you think he was 20, 30 miles an hour slower than LaJoie?
I was going to say 30 to 40.
By the way, a 40-mile-an-hour impact will kill somebody.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the reason why they have the Hans devices, the 5-point seats, the 5-point seats seatbelts, harnesses, and the containment seats is because that much of a differential will absolutely kill somebody. That is a hard hit when you hit something sitting still. You hit a parked car, you're going to be surprised how much it's going to rattle you. Corey LaJoie is in that same situation where he said he got out of the car, his hands was shaking, and he was still trying to process what had happened in his brain.
He just knew he saw flames, so he had to get out of the car, and he got a few feet away from the car, and he collapsed. He said he couldn't breathe. He said he couldn't think. Basically his body was in shock. It was a mild form of shock. And, instinct got him out of the car. But it wasn't that he was there praying for Newman. I mean, it'd been a great story if he would have said, and I got out and said a prayer for Ryan Newman. But he had no idea.
Right.
If you'd seen his interview, people would know that. And
the series events that happened next were obviously frightening, where you could feel right away when Fox came back from commercial break and would typically show Ryan Newman getting out of the car, send a reporter down there, go to Victory Lane, get an interview with Newman. When they came back and it was booth only, and it was Jeff and Mike Joy standing there, and they gave a little bit of a very respectful conversation, and then that was it. The coverage for Fox should have gone on for the next hour to 2 hours. Celebrations, interviews, recaps, thoughts on the race, all this stuff. But to my understanding, as soon as NASCAR realized that Ryan was hurt, regardless of the severity, NASCAR said, we're shutting it down.
Well,
and that's when they notified Joe Gibbs Racing in Victory Lane. That was the first time that Denny Hamlin knew that Ryan Newman was hurt. After he'd done the celebration donuts and he'd gone to Victory Lane, they had started to do the celebration, and then the NASCAR official notified them that we're shutting it all down. They sent everybody home. Joe Gibbs came back and made the apology because people were in an uproar that Denny was celebrating while they were trying to get Ryan out of the car. Guys, you have no idea how big that racetrack is. It's massive. And even for Denny doing his victory circle donuts, to Ryan over there working on the car, Denny could have never even seen what was going on. For them safety officials to be working on Newman's car.
Well, and the car was still upside down. There's been times when the driver's perfectly fine, but he's upside down, and it takes him a bit to get him out of the car. That's just the way it is.
Right.
But Denny did absolutely nothing wrong. Gibbs' crew did nothing wrong. I mean, that whole thing, everything went like it should have. I thought the whole thing got cut a little bit short. Maybe NASCAR cut it shorter than they would have, but I just figured since they'd moved the race to Monday, I figured they were trying to get back to regular programming.
Could have been.
So they didn't go through the normal hour of post-race like they normally would.
I kept seeing people on Facebook, and I kept trying to get them to stop doing it. That 2 hours, 2 to 3 hour window where we didn't know anything that was going on with Ryan. I was hearing some scary reports from people down there that was from credible sources, but I wasn't about to go on social media and spread any kind of unfounded rumors. They put the black curtain up because you don't know what's going to happen when they get Ryan out of that car. And God forbid some little fan sitting up in the grandstands that's 50, 60, 80 yards away from that situation, or feet away from that situation, sees something that's going to traumatize them for the rest of their life. Whether it be the worst case scenario that Ryan's passed, he died, and they got to pull a dead guy out of the... It was a simple precaution. And the fact that people said, they put the curtain up and this feels very much like 2001. It felt like 2001 because they went through this before. They knew how to handle it, and they handled it perfectly. They pulled the media out of there. They didn't want people to speculate. God forbid his daughters hear that he's dead, when it turns out he's just sitting in Halifax Hospital getting checked over and made sure he's okay. God forbid, but people have no problem going to Facebook and Twitter and talking about, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad.
A couple of them posted "Rest in peace, Ryan Newman," and put the year and put his birth year and the 2020 behind it.
It just infuriates me. Thank God we're wrong.
I kept telling people, if it ain't from Roush and it ain't from NASCAR,
right,
blow it off.
Right.
Nobody's got a right to be doing that. Everybody thinks they've got to be the one that's got the scoop and says the thing. And, man, there were some local people doing it. It's just terrible.
Well, from being dead, apparently, to walking out of Halifax Medical Center on Wednesday afternoon.
With his kids.
Shoes. And no shoes. Can somebody get the guy some shoes? I mean, this is. I was just blown away at this. The guy's walking out. It's a cute picture. It's emotional. It's going to be all over the internet for a long time. It's going to float around during his retirement. It's a great picture. Get the guy some shoes. I realize he was just in a really bad accident, but get the guy some shoes.
I was kind of taken aback though that the video that I saw was posted by his soon-to-be ex-wife.
Now, that's something we don't need to talk about.
Well, but it did surprise me very much.
You know, how many times have people gotten divorced because it just didn't work out, and they need to walk away and just have an amicable relationship? She's still been with the guy for how long? He was just in a terrible accident. I'm sure she cares for him deeply. So, yeah, great for her that she was there supporting him, even though they're going through a tough time. But this reminded me so much of Adam Golian's crew member, where the guy had his head cracked open underneath of a car, and he is walking just fine today. I think he was a month after the incident happened, he was released from the hospital. I mean, just insane recovery. And Ryan, we haven't gotten an update since Wednesday afternoon on Newman. We may get an update on today during the race. Who knows? But just miraculous. I mean, from going through that 3 hours of, Jesus, did we all just watch somebody die? To guys walking out of the hospital on Wednesday afternoon. I mean, holy cow. Amen. And in replacement of Ryan Newman in the 6 car today at Las Vegas, a friend of the show that's been on several times, and we love having the guy on, Ross Chastain is taking over in the 6. Last part of the conversation I want to talk a little bit about. Everyone's so excited about Ross Chastain getting his break.
Well, I thought he got his break when he got the Ganassi Xfinity car.
Well, yeah, and then that went away.
No.
I hate to be critical of Roush Fenway, but when I think about a big break in NASCAR and getting a top-tier ride, it's not the 6 at Roush Fenway Racing.
Well,
it's not a bad ride. Maybe he could do something with it. Maybe he could knock off a couple of top 15, top 10s. I don't think he's going to be in the hunt for top 5s. I would be surprised if he's in the hunt for top 10s. The kid can wheel. I don't think he's going to have the equipment to wheel with, is what I'm getting at.
Well, he might have the equipment. Does he have the engineering behind him? You know, I mean, Newman had a pretty good season last year in that car.
Yeah.
So
that's an experienced veteran driver. And listen, we've talked about this continuously. When you talk about the top-tier teams, Roush isn't in the conversation anymore.
No, they're not the number 1 Ford team. I mean, matter of fact, they're the number 3 Ford team, but they do have their name on the valve covers of every Ford out there. So
right.
They don't say they're down on horsepower, because that's not
No, I'm not saying that at all. I think it's technology. I think that they got way behind on crew chiefs and car engineers. And they're struggling to get caught back up. And I don't know if it's, Jack is just old school and I'm going to do it the driver way. I'm going to do it the crew chief way. I'm not going to worry about these engineers. I don't know what it is over there. We're obviously not that involved with the situation, but you don't see Roush Fenway cars fighting for wins very often, and that's probably the reason why there was a big shakeup in the offseason of drivers.
I mean, that if Roush would have still been on top, Carl never would have left.
Right.
He would not have left.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if Matt Kenseth would have left either.
I completely agree. They both went to Joe Gibbs Racing because they looked at what Joe Gibbs was doing and went, Jesus.
Well, and they looked what Roush wasn't doing.
Right, absolutely.
Believe me, I was in the garage and I was doing my tech work when Toyota came in 2004 into the Truck Series. And their idea behind racing changed the landscape of the garage. Toyota changed everything.
All right, we're going to take a break in turn number 3. We're going to come back in turn number 4. We're going to get you set for today's race at Las Vegas, and we'll be back on the front stretch.
Don't be that guy on the work site freezing his lug nuts off, wondering why he never went to Red Oak Fabrication for incredibly warm and working man-proof gear. From simple work gloves, boots, or hats to full jackets and coveralls, Carhartt from Red Oak Fabrication will keep you warm during the brisk winter months for a lot less than those big city prices. Find them online at redoakfabrication.com/Carhartt. Like their Facebook page for monthly specials and stop by in person on the corner of 3rd Street and East Grimes in Red Oak, Iowa.
Every has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Just about ready to wrap this baby up. Rolling into turn number 4, brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. Dirk, what's your thoughts on the teriyaki pineapple wings that you tried, the sauce of the month that's around for just a couple more days?
After eating 14 wings and being on a fluid restriction, that did not work out. And believe me, they tasted fantastic. That's why I ate 14 of them.
They're very, very good. You need a bib, though. They were messy.
They were messy, very sticky.
Mm-hmm.
I was washing them out of my beard for like 2 days.
I know. But they give you those hot towels, the towelettes. I took 2 or 3 of them and just rubbing them in my beard.
But they were very good. I even told a couple of the techs up at my dialysis center who went over Tuesday night for you can eat wings night and destroyed them. But they came back Wednesday with the same thing for me. With my dialysis, I'm on a fluid restriction. I was up like 3 times drinking like little 4-ounce cups of water Sunday night. There must be a high sodium content in the teriyaki or something. So,
Very well could be. Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. All of the action for today's race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway will be on the big screens of Quaker Steak and Lube. The Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas. Coverage is on Fox and PRN. Green flag is scheduled for about 2:45 Central Time. All of your picks are going to be due. Try to get them in before 2 o'clock Central Time on Sunday for today's race at Las Vegas. Let's talk a little bit about the results this time last year. Now, this race was the 3rd race of the year. Now it's going to be the 2nd race of the year with the rejiggered 2020 schedule. Joey Logano, after winning stage 2, comes home with the victory, leading 86 laps, just shy of the most laps. Brad Keselowski came home in 2nd, Kyle Busch in 3rd. Kevin Harvick, who won stage 1, finished 2nd in stage 2 and led the most laps at 88 total laps, finished 4th, and Kurt Busch in 5th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., when he was still behind the wheel of the 17, finished 6th. Eric Almirola 7th, Martin Truex Jr. 8th, Chase Elliott 9th, and Denny Hamlin with a nice top 10 finish.
And I don't remember, I'm trying to think back what got Harvick out of the front of the pack. I don't remember if he had a loose wheel or a pit road penalty. It was one of the two, but I don't remember which. And he got clear back and drove through the field, but just ran out of time. He was the fastest car.
Looking at the penalty report from NASCAR, doesn't look like the 4 was ever penalized, so maybe they just had a loose wheel.
Yep.
Not really rough days for anybody that is worth noting. Ryan Blaney, 22nd. Pretty typical race. Las Vegas will be a fun race today. The Pennzoil 400, 2nd race of the season. Once again, you can get all the coverage on Fox and PRN. If you don't have TV like me, which I now have to buy it so I can watch my NASCAR races again. I've been without TV for about 4 months now, and I've absolutely loved it, but got to go back into having the TV so I can watch today's race. But if you don't want to get TV and you don't have TV, you can always catch it at Quaker Steak and Lube on the big screens. Again, coverage starts, I would bet, probably about 1 o'clock today, with picks being about 2 and green flag set to wave at about 2:30 today. Once again, we thank everybody for coming out to Quaker Steak and Lube for the Daytona 500. Mark your calendars. I think it's November 8th. November 8th is the Phoenix viewing party, the championship wrap-up. We'll do it all over again at Quaker Steak and Lube. You can come down and enjoy some great specials, great beers, great food, great prizes, because we'll be fully locked and loaded for the prize vault at that time. And you can come down and do it all over again. But thank you to everybody for joining us on Facebook Live. Thank you to everybody for joining us online. Thanks so much to Red Oak Fabrication for sponsoring all of our interviews, Quaker Steak and Lube for all their support, and Omaha Virtual Reality, who just joined the show. Thank you to those guys. We got a big event coming up with them. We're going to announce next weekend. So once again, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll do it all again next week on the Front Stretch.
The official watering hole of the Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Hey, look at that. You're sitting on your couch playing Halo, Madden, or NASCAR while your friends are at Joe's Karting. Each lap is an adrenaline-filled, heart-pumping, white-knuckle experience that you can only get at the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Eco-friendly Honda engines rip you around the professionally designed road course at breakneck speeds. Can you reach the 14-second lap bracket? There's only one way to find out. Put the controller down and get to Joe's Karting, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs next to Quaker Steak and Lube.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.